You are listening to the Cookbook Love Podcast with Maggie Green, episode number 341.
Welcome to the Cookbook Love Podcast, a podcast that celebrates cookbook readers, buyers, collectors, writers, and clubs. And now your host, cookbook author, culinary dietitian, and cookbook writing coach, Maggie Green.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Cookbook Love Podcast. Talking to you, as always, here from my cookbook bunker. And another, as always, my cat's usually asleep in the corner, and he hears me talking, and then he wakes up. So here he comes over here to visit. That's just the way it goes here in the cookbook bunker. Having a great day here. It's a beautiful weather outside. Looking forward to a fun day. Getting ready to start the live Get Paid to Get Published Accelerator in the Get Paid to Get Published program. We're going to be talking about building our platforms. And also, I have a podcast interview at 2:00 for an upcoming interview with a cookbook author, which will be great. And then tonight, Warren and I are going to a play. We got a subscription to the Cincinnati Playhouse in the Park, so we are going to a play this evening, going out to dinner before, and always look forward to having something like that on my calendar. So I've been thinking a lot about cookbook writing, as you can imagine, and been doing, in addition to what I'm doing today, a lot of cooking this week. Had some friends over yesterday for lunch because we're planning a bridal shower for another friend's son and fiance. I'm preparing an egg casserole today to deliver to someone that goes to the Catholic church that I go to. And every month we deliver dinner to a place in Covington that houses homeless women and children. And tomorrow I'm hosting a happy hour for some friends on Thursday evening. It's fun to get together for something like that. And I've been thinking about why I've been cooking so much, and it's because I am headed into another cookbook project. And when I write cookbooks, I do a lot of cooking, more than I normally do, because I want to be in the mode of cooking and thinking about food. And pretty soon I'm going to launch into thinking about food from the perspective of what I'm writing the book about. But what I want to talk about today with you is how to be the cookbook author that you want to be. Because before we write our first book, we're not a cookbook author. We are just a cookbook writer. The author comes in when our book is actually published. Now, if you get a book deal, you could say you're on your way to being an author, but the book really is what makes you an author. And the funny thing about that is, some of you may not find that funny, but it sometimes takes 18 to 24 months for this to happen. From the time that you want to write a book to seeing it finished, especially if you're doing the traditional publishing route, may take 2 years. And that's what I'm embarking on with my cookbook proposal. And that's what I'm headed into. And I keep thinking about the long game of cookbook publishing and this time between now and when my book comes out. And how do I sustain myself on this journey to the traditionally published book? What's going to keep me grounded and rooted and motivated and going and moving forward when I'm working on another book? And what I've learned over the years of working with cookbook writers that have success and those that don't, working with myself with writing books and thinking about it when I do it successfully and when I don't, is I have to stay rooted, and you have to stay rooted in belief. And I want to talk about what that belief needs to be. And then I'm going to talk about what you do after you believe. Now, belief is not a point on a line. I think belief is like a spectrum of belief. And we sometimes won't really fully be in belief until we see the book. But we have to believe several things that are true before we even will get the courage to write the book, get the strength to write the book, or have the capacity to write the book. And the first thing we really do have to believe is that we have something valuable to say about food or cooking or nutrition or baking or whatever it is. If we don't believe, and if you don't believe that you have something valuable to say to other people, you won't want to say it. You'll think it's dumb. And when we don't believe that we have something valuable to say and we think that it's dumb, then we don't want to say it. And that means we won't write our cookbook proposal. A proposed book means I have something valuable to offer. I have something valuable to say about this topic, and I want to say it. Now, I think I've told you the story before. When I wrote my very first cookbook, I knew I was an excellent cook. I knew I was cooking seasonally in Kentucky all the time for my family, but I did not fully believe that what I had to offer and what I had to say was valuable. It took me a year to pitch this concept to the publisher. And it wasn't because I wasn't doing the work of the cooking, it's because I didn't believe in the value of it. So I think this is probably the number one thing. And I want to tell you something. And I've probably said this 100 times before, maybe in 100 different ways. But if you are a regular cook or baker and you have figured out how to do things in your kitchen and you're really good at cooking or baking, you have something to offer because so many people need your help. Number two, then, you have to believe in the impact that your book is going to have in the future on cooks and bakers in a positive way. Pick a topic that you know without a doubt is going to help people in the future when the book comes out. So not only is it valuable, but it's going to help others. And the book that I'm getting ready to propose, I know for a fact, without a shadow of a doubt, is going to help future cooks and bakers. And it's in alignment with some things that are going on in the food world right now. It's not too trendy, but it's pretty basic, but will definitely help people in the future. No doubt about that. So if you don't believe that, you've got to get to the place where you believe that. Because if you think that you're writing a book that isn't going to help people and isn't valuable, you aren't going to want to write it. And maybe that's why you're not writing it right now. I don't know, but you have to believe it's going to have impact on people in the future. Number three, you have to believe that the publishing team that you are going to work with is capable of creating beautiful books. If you don't believe that, you're not going to want to work with a publisher. I see value in both self and traditional publishing, but I am so excited to pitch this proposal to the publishing team that I am pitching to because I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that they will be the perfect publisher for the book that I want to write. And that they are going to create a beautiful book because their books are very nice. Their books do well. They're promoted well. They have a sales team. I can't wait to create the book with them. And I know the publishing team is going to do this topic justice because when you traditionally publish, you don't create the book yourself. The publisher does. And I can't wait for them to create this book. Can't wait to see what it's going to look like. Number four, you have to believe that you have the ability to be a living example now of what you're writing about. If you are going to write about tacos 100 different ways, you need to become a living example of tacos and learn and practice and cook and share and talk all about tacos. Talk to people who make them. Learn how to make them. Share what other people know. Share stories of what people do, but you have to be a living example of what you're writing about. Now, you don't have to be a living example of what you're writing about, But the most aligned, authentic books are when people are living examples of what they're writing about. If I'm going to dive into this project, and I've probably mentioned this before, that I'm getting ready to propose, I am going to be a living example of what I'm writing about. I'm not going to go off on a trajectory of doing other things. Speaking of which, like, I'm not going to get off on the sourdough bread and all the things that I've been talking about, maybe with trying sourdough this year. I'll give you an update about that in the future, but I need to focus and be the person who is a living example of what it is I'm writing about. That's the way we learn the types of objections and the types of issues and the types of concerns and the types of obstacles and the types of ways we can help people is by actually doing the thing that we're writing about. And as I'm embarking on writing this proposal, I'm actually being a living, breathing example for all of my students of someone who is writing a traditionally published cookbook. And I've done that with self-publishing. I think if I'm going to coach cookbook writers, I need to stay in the cookbook writing and publishing game. And so I'm a living, breathing example of that, and I'm going to be a living, breathing example of what I am cooking and talking about. Number 5, you need to believe in your capacity to follow through on what you're proposing and to finish the project. If you don't see yourself as someone who follows through and finishes and meets deadlines, then you will never be able to work through working with a traditional publisher. And maybe that's something that's holding you back. But if you can believe in your capacity to follow through and complete the project, then you will follow through and complete the project. You have the capacity to do that. Now, it's funny because I actually believe now I have less capacity than I did when I wrote my first cookbook when I had 3 children under the age of 13. Now, how is that possible? How is it possible that I think I have less capacity now than I did then? Wasn't I busier then than I was now? But I think that our brain tricks us when we are less busy, like I'm less busy raising children, I may start to think I have less time to do other things. And that's not really true. I have a lot of capacity. I've built that over the years. I know I'm good at follow through. I know I'm good at completing things. And I'm going to continue to lean into and believe that capacity. So work on that for yourself. I think this is a big one. Next to thinking you have something valuable to say, we need to see ourselves as people who follow through and finish things. And then number 6, we need to believe so much about our value, about the future impact, about our publishing team, about my ability to be a living example, about our capacity, that we do not give any room in our brain for doubt and fear, because I promise they will always be there. But we have to have an answer for doubt and fear, or they will take our project down. That's what they want to do. They think we're safer if we're not writing cookbooks. But that's not true. I'm perfectly safe, perfectly capable, have the ability, have a team waiting for a proposal. I know this book's going to have an impact. I know I have something valuable to say. And I know that when I believe those things, doubt and fear have no room to roost in my brain. They're not going to roost. They're not going to lay any eggs. They're not going to stop me from doing what I want to do. And you see what happens then is when we are rooted in belief about ourselves and our capacity in the book we want to write, we just take the steps to do what we need to do. So the first thing, I need to create a concept, which I have. I need to write a proposal, which I'm working on. I need to send it to my publisher, which I will. I'm going to sign a book deal, hopefully, as a result of that. I'll write my manuscript, and then I'm going to trust my publisher to create the beautiful book. But it probably won't be that this book comes out until 2027. But when the book is delivered, I will feel so proud of myself, of my readers, of what I've been able to accomplish with a publishing team, of my ability to live this project while I'm writing it, of my capacity to follow through and complete things, and to not let doubt or fear stop me, because I will be a cookbook author again of a new book that I believed myself into being. So when you believe yourself to be a cookbook author, based on all the things we've talked about, your book writing will come to fruition. But remember, it's a long haul. It's not a fast overnight thing. The reason we want to rush to completion is because we don't think we can sustain the belief that we need during the time while we're working on the book project. We think we're going to get derailed. We think obstacles are going to come up, which they are, but we have to just believe that we will not let those derail us and that we can handle anything that comes our way as we're working toward the goal of the book. So I'm getting myself excited about this book. I want you to get excited about your book. And if you are interested in writing a cookbook of your own, I do have my Get Paid to Get Published program. We are starting a new month of our live accelerator calls. We're going to be focusing on, like I said, building our platform. And I'll put a link in the show notes for a blog post that I wrote and a checklist about building your platform. And if this will help you out, I'm happy to share that with you here today. So that is it for today's episode of the Cookbook Love podcast. This is your host, Maggie Green. And until next time, have a great day and keep loving your cookbooks.
Thanks for listening to the Cookbook Love podcast. You can find out more information at www.cookbooklove.co.